Welcome back to Education Matters. Did you correctly answer D? Last year, our public schools averaged 375 students for each guidance counselor, much higher than the recommended level of 250 per guidance counselor. I don't know, 250 still sounds like an awful lot to me. We are continue to be joined by Representative Blackwell, Hugh Blackwell from Burke County, and we are Representative Graig Meyer from Durham and Orange County. Representative Meyer, I want to pick up where we just left off talking about the class size issue, because honestly, when I talk to educators out in the field and school leaders, that's what I hear about almost all the time now is this how we're going to pay for, one, the teachers to meet the class size requirements, but also the infrastructure, the classrooms that we need, particularly in growing areas. What are you hearing?
I mean, what I hear from people is that they don't consider PE and art and music classes to be enhancements. They consider them to be a part of what is the standard curriculum and what we expect in public schools these days. People want their kids to have access to those classes. And so we don't want a class size reduction to come at the expense of losing access to that curriculum. Representative Blackwell and I probably have more in common on this than different, because this isn't a partisan issue. There's really been a divide between the House and the Senate in a lot of ways. And the Senate has made a very clear priority around class size, but they really haven't thought it through because they didn't think about the consequences to curriculum. And as you pointed out, there's no money that's been set aside for the additional classroom space that would be required. And I don't think parents are going to be happy if thousands of students end up in mobile trailers because of the class size reduction.
I mean, some of the numbers that I've heard, Representative Blackwell, you probably heard some, $300 million up to is one of the estimates just for the personnel, and that's not counting classes. And then there's also the concern about, well, if you do the class size reductions, what's the impact on the class sizes in grades 4 through 8? I mean, it sort of rolls up. So it sounds like you think we need to figure out a fix on this.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to switch gears on it because I want to talk about something I know you care about. Looks like that we're going to get an increase in pay for principals this year in some way, which is great. What do you think are the key components that needs to be present in any kind of final package for principals?
One, introduced this by saying I think that the leader in the building, to me, is key. We hear a lot of talk about the importance of the classroom teacher, and I do not diminish that at all, but teachers that are excellent have a hard time doing a good job if they don't have a principal who understands what's needed and can support and encourage. So anyway, having said that, one is we just basically need to raise the level of pay. We're 50th in the nation and have been for a long time. And in order to be competitive, we need to do that. Right. Two, we need to get rid of, I think there's probably over 1,000 different possibilities for paying principals based on a variety of all sorts of factors that have crept into the system over the last 25 or 30 years. So condensing that so that there's a simpler approach and factoring in largely the size of the school they're in and paying more for those who've got the more difficult schools, which is usually where you've got low-performing students, which is usually where you've got low income and free and reduced lunch. Yeah. So both the Senate and the House, I think, are agreed on that basic theory. There's another piece that I think is being negotiated, and the salary issue is handled by the so-called big chairs and full chairs. They don't let us lowly chairs do it, although I give them my opinion when I can. But they're also talking about trying to add some bonuses in that might be a retention bonus if you're going to lose a good one to go somewhere that they pay more, a recruitment bonus to try to get somebody to come to a low-performing school that you need to turn around, and you want to pay them to get them so that it's worth their while and that they're not making a sacrifice in doing. So there's some things of that sort that are going on.
Let me ask about some other things that have been sort of in dispute. Cuts to central offices, the county offices. The House budget that was passed would bring central office funding down to $84 million, which is the same level it was in 1996. Is it? I mean, it looks like. I mean, is that enough? I mean, look, I'm gonna share this. I've heard this. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about sort of why these cuts are happening. I've heard from multiple people that these cuts are sometimes referred to as the Mayoral Cuts, referring to the superintendent of Wake County because he was so vocal about some of the challenges they were having. What are you? Where did House Democrats come down on these central office cuts?
The central office cut isn't going to hurt Wake County. Wake County has lots of local money that they raise that they can choose to spend because of their massive tax base. But if you're in a Greene County or Avery County, small counties that really depend on state funding for most of their support, having this continual central office cut really hurts your ability to provide the basic support for curriculum and staffing, HR, things that you have to have just to run a school system. And I don't think it passes anybody's test to say like we should be at the same level where we were in the mid-90s, as you pointed out.
Yeah, I mean, is there a belief that they just don't have anything to do, and that's why it should be?
Well, I'm not going to try to justify something that I happen not to agree with. Graig and I are pretty close together on this. I think, unfortunately, there are a lot of legislators on both sides of the aisle, maybe, but there are a lot of legislators who want to be prescriptive.
This is the House budget. I mean, you can vote. Okay.
Well, it is.
Okay.
And but what I'm saying is, I think that Graig is right that the wealthy school systems can afford to keep people in the central office, which is what they've always done.
Right. We've only got about a minute left. Are we on the right track on teacher pay, Representative Meyer?
The teacher pay question is a really simple question of are we investing enough? And then the secondary question of are we paying the right people the right amount? The House budget only gives veteran teachers and new teachers under a 1% raise. I think that we should be supporting them more. And there's no surprise that across party lines, Democrats really wish we were putting more money into teacher raises.
Gotcha. We are out of time. Come back and see us. We want to talk to you more, particularly after the budget gets settled. But we appreciate your time today. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
After the break, this week's Leadership Spotlight.